Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья. Начинаем наш воскресный.
Hello, dear friends. We begin our Sunday webinar. As always,
Hello.
Michael Laitman with us. I'm Simen Benakur. Michael. Today we begin, or rather continue, articles of Baal HaSulam. Today's article is called The Science of Kabbalah and Its Essence. So 30 cities with us, 32 languages, masses of people are connected, new students from Sochi, Rostov, and I'm sure in other groups we receive messages. And let's read an excerpt.
That's your business.
How?
You are leading.
And one of the terms what Kabbalah is. And Baal HaSulam writes, science of Kabbalah is the revelation of Creator in all the ways, in present times and in the future times. That's the beginning of the...
In other words, everything that's revealed to a person in the past, future, and present is what we study in Kabbalah. We don't know anything else and cannot speak of anything else existing. This is what a person attains, just like with any other science. Whatever a person attains out of the nature that he is in, except that here we're talking about additional attainment. Aside from our world, we're talking about the upper world.
But here we talk about very massive attainment in the future, in the past, in the present.
Absolute means it's still limited with our abilities, human or overly human. This is what a person attains.
And about that, the continuation definition. And with all the ways, we can determine him until the last generation.
Yes, completely unlimited by time and space, in the depth of attainment, everything that a person can reveal for himself. This is called the science of Kabbalah. Practically, this is the biggest, largest wealth of knowledge that contains within it all other knowledges as containments.
And naturally, a traditional question: the wisdom of Kabbalah is it a science of Kabbalah or wisdom of Kabbalah? Why do we write science of Kabbalah?
We're talking about science of Kabbalah because it is attained by a person in the same definitions as any other science. Because the problem here is to begin to feel this world, which is much more larger, not the one that we perceive in our animalistic senses, our five organs, but when we expand these organs, in them we attain, and they're also called, these new organs, five senses, Keter Chochmah Bin Azrampin Malchut. Within them we attain the upper world, the next volume of the universe, which is larger than our current attained volume of attainment. When we attain it, the way we relate to it and study it and record everything about it is the same as we do with the sciences of our world, which is why in this relationship Kabbalah can be called a science. But wisdom, it can be called because it expands within such areas of feelings and thought that they elevate a person to a new degree, another degree of governance of our world, which is why it's called wisdom.
Maybe then, if you can you also add what's the difference between scientists in our world and Kabbalistic scientists?
Is also scientist, except that he has greater tools for attainment. He raises above his own nature and examines everything in the spiritual nature.
And the scientists in our world shouldn't do that, right?
Of our world, what they do is they they use the tools that they have from birth, and they use them to examine our world. The difference here is the area of attainment. A Kabbalist can be called a scientist, except a scientist that deals with the next upper world.
As usually you say, the scientists of our world shouldn't change, but
Here
the
he
Kabbalists should change.
means for attainment, for work. If in our world a scientist needs to develop his mind and feelings, but earthly ones, and develop them in quality and quantity, then on the other hand, the Kabbalist needs to develop within him completely new desires and thoughts and feelings which have no relation to our earthly ones. And within those new ones, he examines the upper world, and then...
So let's try to complete this topic. So in scientists of this world, he uses a microscope and so forth. What's the instrument of Kabbalists in this world?
A Kabbalist's instrument is himself. The expansion of his inner attainment is his tool.
Alex from Moldova is asking, revelation of the Creator in definition. Are we talking about the becoming the similarity with the qualities with Creator?
That are unchangeable on all degrees of attainment, and then there are those that can change. Let's say in physics, if I can write an equation that I studied in the 5th or 6th grade, let's say, relationship between speed, time, and distance, then if I study these same equations in college or university, then over there they have a completely different form. Over there we're talking about integrals and differentials. So I cannot limit myself with what occurred in school, because in higher education I have a great attainment. Same in Kabbalah.
But the laws are the same. Are there the same paths, or there are different paths of attainment, the same attainment?
No. A very specific path of attainment is expansion of your feelings towards spiritual qualities.
Roman from Lvov is asking, are we talking about the revelation of the Creator? Is he hiding himself? Why and what for? And from whom?
In our world, we are also constantly discovering new qualities and interdependencies. The same in Kabbalah. What does it mean? Concealed. Concealed from a person. When in the past, huge areas of knowledge were hidden from us, and we gradually revealed them in our world. The same thing in Kabbalah. In the measure that we develop the tools that we work with, we also discover what we have not noticed in the past, could not feel, could not relate between one another.
So the Creator, some kind of law of thermodynamics.
The Creator is a general law of nature, and that's what we study. Laws of our nature, laws of our world also study the Creator.
What's the cause that was hidden and
in relation to a human being? Because in the past, the human being did not feel sense, just like a child. What does he see when he's little? But when he grows, he sees more and more and more. The same thing with us. Across thousands of years, we develop our knowledge. If, in order to attain our world, we only need to expand our natural senses, then Kabbalah is called a secret hidden science, because for it we need to expand new organs, new senses, which we don't have. But what we study, it all does exist. It exists. Let's say a snake or a frog or any other animal, they sense more than I sense. In a certain frequency of sight and sound or temperature, I don't sense as much as they do. That's why we're talking about a discovery in relation to a human being.
Vladimir from Madrid is asking, what does it mean to ascend above the governing of our world? What are we talking about here?
Kabbalah does not govern our world.
What does it mean to rise to the level of governance of our world?
Okay, I'll explain. Whatever I interpret as my world. In reality, though, I don't know what the world is and what it consists of. All I know is what I see, I interpret within myself. This is a point from which we need to talk about ourselves and where we are. So, when we talk about our world, then we need to understand that this is our world, that we perceive and build within ourselves. Which is why this definition is subjective, never objective. It's based on the person that attains. Today he attains in this way, and tomorrow he will attain in a different way. And there are certain general laws, rules, definitions. Still, we're always talking about the individual attainment of a person.
Dima from Kiev is asking, the scientists in our world always argue and they disagree by advancing their theories. And how is it happening amongst Kabbalists?
Kabbalists, scientists in Kabbalah, they accurately imagine where they are and doesn't meddle in the degrees where he's not currently. So up until the degree that he attained, until that degree we can say that this is a correct scientist and we can trust his conclusion and can speak with him like to a scientist. But if a scientist who is a Kabbalist does not have an opportunity to correctly observe the degree where he is at, he cannot see that next border between the next degree and his current degree, then his perceptions are not real. And that's where you can get certain hypotheses or theories or even mistakes. We see this in the books of Kabbalists. They write about this.
Baal HaSulam is also writing.
Baal HaSulam wrote an entire book about how huge Kabbalists before him of the 17th and 18th century did not correctly explain a huge segment about nature. In Kabbalah, this occurs as in any other science, and Kabbalists between themselves, they are often not in good relationship between one another. Just like scientists, there is criticism, there are certain blame games. Maybe this wasn't like this, but it was like that. And this can be seen in writings, certain drawings. It's a regular science. A person is before something that he is undiscovered.
Nevertheless, the perception of the Kabbalists has to be a little different, probably, to criticisms.
It should be like this and like that.
Okay, Elena is asking, what does it give to me, the growing revelation of the Creator? What am I getting from it?
Revelation of the Creator gives a person an understanding in which world does he exist. In our world, we are used to existing in limitations of life and death. We're used to the fact that we all die, and we agree with it. We die. A Kabbalist, he does not. He wishes to feel himself outside of time and space. He doesn't want to be limited by these frameworks. He wants to exit them. And that's why he studies Kabbalah and realizes it. That is why there are huge opportunities here, and very practical ones. But in general, you need to understand that a person with his definitions, perceptions, and values in life, but it is a person. A Kabbalist is a person up until a certain degree. He's in attainment, but greater than the degree that he is at, he has no right to even talk about it, which is why he can get confused and confuse others as well.
We advance further, and a worker who is working without any goal, the same way the Creator has the goal, and all the variety is the quality of the animal, which feels himself existing, and every existence is the conscious existence which is given to the person.
Yeah, what don't you got here?
Can you please comment this?
We exist in a certain state where we
where are we given the consciousness here?
This is the world that we exist in. We need to ascend into the next world. I don't know what to add here.
And because of the sensation, we get the sympathy and sensation of others. The object of the creation is a person, and about the person is written that everything that is done, the Creator was done for the human.
This is given to a person that can expand the limits of his perception. You see, a person, while getting close to those that are similar to him, can connect into them so much that he doesn't only expand attainment in our world, in this dimension. Animals also exchange information. But you see, in Kabbalah, we can ascend to a certain degree where we exit ourselves as animals and ascend to a degree where we represent a human essence, where we find systems similar to us called human systems, and these systems, they connect inside of ourselves and present before us a new reality.
Nikolai from Athens is writing, why the human feels the suffering particularly. It's also acceptable to dogs and other animals. Why is it in the formulation of the Baal HaSulam that
Baal HaSulam means it depends on what a person can actually attain. What he means is that an animal, including a person in our world, they can feel another through their ego, which is why their perception is very limited, except that which relates to their ego. They filter everything through their ego, and based on that perception from others, I cannot perceive others the way they are, but I can perceive them only after they pass through the filter of my egoism. And I cannot be objective here. Yeah. When a Kabbalist attains the upper world, he perceives it, attains it completely objectively, because he ascends above his egoism and begins to perceive it completely objectively, not in his egoistic perceptions, which is why we can talk about a perception of a Kabbalist as independent of himself.
You answered this question, but Alex from Florida is asking why the sensation of your neighbor is called the consciousness left to feel as yourself.
To feel another as yourself is a problem in our world. To feel another correctly, objectively, you need to ascend above your ego. That's already an entire system of perception.
Question from Kishnell. Why Baal HaSulam is writing about the second step of the attainment is called from mouth to mouth. Can we also apply this?
This is not something we can talk about. It's an entirely different degree. This is something that's called a kiss, when through a general screen when two people have a common screen and has nothing to do with our world, with our kisses and our bodies, it's just, that's how it's called, because in the spiritual world there are no words. We take all the words from our world. When we can reach such a connection between us, when our common screens unite together and work in unison, and by the way, on a degree that is the common upper part of our Parzuf called Chabad, we can say that we are in such a connection which is called a common kiss.
What is mutual inclusion between a teacher and
mutual
student?
interconnection. Doesn't matter if it's two teachers or teacher and student, two students, when they are in interconnection in the highest degree of their attainment, called Chabad.
Mila is asking the basic question: what is this attainment? What is this essence of the enjoyment?
The essence of enjoyment is in the fact that through certain actions I fulfill a desire with the upper light. The sensation of fulfillment of my desire with the upper light is called enjoyment or pleasure.
Question from Novosibirsk. Which filters are going through my sensations through altruistic or egoistic?
If you feel your small arousal within yourself, or you feel aroused by the Creator that fulfills you. Do you perceive only a sensation, or the one who gives you that sensation as well? In other words, you raise to his degree, to the next degree, because he is higher than you.
Third excerpt. Nevertheless, we need to understand why the Creator has created such a burden in order to raise a human to the next degree, so he would sense the Creator as it is already, as he already possesses. And by studying the connecting with a friend, he would study the ways of the Creator. And each human can become a great wise man.
Yep. You see, by connecting between each other, we can pass to one another spiritual information. And through that, we can raise everyone else. This is our essence.
As always, the question, what does it mean that every person can become a Moshe, a great sage?
Not only can, but should attain such a state. There is no greater degree than Moshe. That is the greatest degree that one can attain. And each one of us can do that. It's not simple, it's difficult, but it's possible for each one. Each one of us will attain this degree, but at the very end of correction.
Since we are before holidays, the Moshe has appeared in the middle of the process. Why didn't he appear before? Why did he appear at the Passover?
It doesn't matter. Every person is born in a period, in a society that is necessary for his correction. Each person goes through certain changes in his destiny within himself in order to make these correct changes within himself. Therefore, you don't need to blame a period when you were born, or a society, or a city where you were born, listing all the many places that I see before me on the screen. It doesn't matter. Kiev is even waving to me. Why am I saying this? We can... It's not us who determine where we need to exist, in which form, our gender, our inner qualities, relationship with our external world. This is all determined by an inner system, inner web of forces, which is why we simply need to act based on that. You see how many groups we have before us.
Vitaly
from Smolensk is asking, if the whole life is a game, there are rules to that game. Please, can you list them?
The rules of the game? There are rules of the game, yes. They're such. The entire goal of the game, as in a card game, is to connect, to gain as many points as possible through connecting with each other. That's the main goal. There are also many other private or individual actions.
What's in this connection? What's so special?
Connection is every time you ascend to a next degree, you see the world in a different way. The way you have a brain, all of a sudden your brain gets increased twofold or 4 times.
And on that topic, there's a question: how can we reveal in this world all infinite states of the Creator and not to go crazy?
You don't need to lose your mind, because you will not attain what you are attaining if you don't previously increase your senses, which is why your senses will always be ready for what you're feeling, for what you're sensing. You will never receive more than what they're ready for, which is why there's no opportunity to lose your mind.
So there has to be some kind of vessel. There shouldn't be any. As long as it appears, then the fulfillment appears. And again, in modern world, the internet unites, connects, economy connects. If you look at the history of humanity, there's always some sort of connections. But what type of connection is the Kabbalist talking about? If people work together, or scientists work together, they unite, and there are better results as an outcome. How can you determine very clearly in Kabbalah the connection?
Kabbalah is greater than the egoism of each of the participants. Unity means ascending above yourself to such a degree that when I connect to another person, I'm already at a different degree of my development, not of egoistic development, but altruistic one. Let's say I'm next to a friend that's next to me. I want to connect with him through love. He, for me, is a sort of a degree, a trampoline, with the help of which I can ascend to the next degree. That's what it means for me to connect with another. That means to ascend above yourself to another degree. Me plus 1, me plus 2, and so on.
Is it necessary that it has to be a person that studies Kabbalah, or it has to be someone else?
I won't be able to connect in this way anymore. It's a condition that needs to be very clear between us.
And that the entire world is in me, and so forth.
It's all philosophy.
Perception. Question from Odessa: how can I spiritually understand people if all the desire from me and their desire to use it is from the Creator?
It doesn't matter for me who they are. Does not matter. What's important for me, they matter to me because I can ascend above myself.
It's important that they would also help.
It's mutual already. When I'm in the world and there's nothing else in the world, I work on connecting with others and through myself pass the upper light towards them.
Natalie's asking from Moscow: the teacher only directs us properly, or teacher also fulfills the properly desires of the students?
A teacher does everything because in relation to you, he's the upper Parsuf, which is why he helps you, inspires you, helps you ascend. Through him, the correcting light passes on to you. Through him passes on to you fulfillment, and so on and so forth. And this is all happens through the upper Parsuf, which is called a teacher.
Continuation of the article. And without any doubt, everyone who observes the creation will understand that spiritual fulfillment, all the actions evolve and the sensation are given until the person can interact with the Creator as he interacts with a friend.
In other words, our development needs to reach such a state when we will attain the qualities of the upper Parsuf, which is always called the Creator in relation to the creature, the lower one. When we ascend to the upper degree, we are in a state of adherence with him, and as a result of our interaction with him, appears a next Parsuf. Not that it didn't exist, but it simply is revealed for us.
The question from Donetsk: what does it mean to talk to the Creator? Is there a dialogue or some kind of conversation? What is it?
There are no words or letters that exist. You can, of course, describe it with sounds, colors, whatever you want. But these are all inner. This is inner information. It's mutual transfer of light from one to another.
And there's a precise understanding of a person. This is a dialogue,
inner level.
Right? So you can't be wrong here, right?
We don't even deal with that. We just bring ourselves to that state.
Our world is perceived by 5 organs of senses, and the Creator is also sensed through the taste. You can taste it, you can hear it, you can see it. Is there such a thing? All at the same time?
Whatever you feel is the Creator. In general,
right now,
there's none else besides him.
So right now, we all sense him.
But who understands him realizes that.
What we have left is just to understand
him.
What he wants from us. There's also another question from Moran. What's the difference between shamanism? Shamanism teaches me how to travel from world to world, how to talk to to ancestors. How can we get it from Kabbalah?
Imagine
the same thing.
With drums, perhaps, but we wouldn't be able to understand each other. I think there are some recordings of this, right? We met a shaman from Alaska, from those.
It was in 2002, I think. But why? They're close to the nature. What's
There's nothing to
going
talk
on
about here? They just have a different approach to nature.
Not the same nature. Alexei from Orenburg. Why is it very important to perceive yourself as the existing? What's so special about this Creator?
If a person wouldn't sense himself as existing, this is, by the way, a complex topic, then he wouldn't be able to advance further towards sensing the Creator. which is what we need to advance towards. We need to develop our senses to such a degree that we would be able to perceive the Creator in His entirety within us.
Question from Kharkov. There are many friends today there. A person, before he meets the teacher, through whom or through what he receives the light, correcting light, or from the birth he is connected to his teacher, and he gradually moves toward his teacher in his life.
As with everyone.
Is that how it was with you? So it was unconscious?
Change. This was a certain fate that directs you and brings people together.
So there's predetermined connection between a student and a teacher.
There are absolutely
right?
no coincidences.
It was recently the article of Rabash was published in the newspaper, and when Rabash was asked, Rabash would always say what he thought, and when he was asked the second time, he already replied with what the student wanted to hear. Is it always like that?
So.
So we can conclude that when the teacher says we need to hear him from the first time, or it's better to
You hear
ask
so many
him again.
times already from me that nothing will help.
So it's not going to help us, right? We're hopeless. Okay. So next article. It is known that the completed action is in the thought, initial thought. Before a person knows how to build a house, he builds it in his mind, and then he draws a plan. And the same way with us, when the goal is clear, the order of the creation is clarified in advance. And according to that plan, that humanity is evolved, ascended, until it is able to sense the Creator as he is able to sense his friend.
In other words, that plan of creation is predetermined. It's determined out of a final state towards the current state. Each transitory state is determined by the first state and the last state. There are no coincidences. We can ask a lot of questions here. How does one person all of a sudden breaks forward and pulls the rest behind them, or maybe pulls them back, and so on and so forth? All of these are very difficult questions. On one hand, there are no coincidences here. On the other hand, each one determines the state of the entire world. You have to understand that the movement here is across multiple degrees, multiple dimensions. Various planes of creation determine our states, but this is not something that we can study now. In Kabbalah, theoretically we can learn about everything, but practically we study only that which we can feel within us, that our organs, our senses, and our mind can understand. Which is why this multi-plane development, when one advances slower, another advances faster, and we depend on each other in certain ways, it's not something that's possible for us to understand or perceive. We can speak about certain small movements, but not more than that.
There's a continuation, and those qualities are like a ladder. There are a multitude of them. A person goes from one to another until he reaches the goal, and the goal is determined according to two essences. One is the spiritual essence, and the second is material. And in Kabbalah, it's called from above downward, from downward upward.
This is everything that comes to us comes from above downwards. All of the governance does. And all of the influence that comes from us towards the upper system of governance is from us. All of our actions ascend from bottom upwards, whether they're successful or not successful. And in this way, there's a certain mutual interconnection between one another, the upper and the lower. As a result, our world moves forward towards the general correction, but it's preferable to speed up that development. Then we won't feel ourselves as useless, or at least suffering.
Valer from Magadan is asking, what is the plan of the creation and of my life? Where can I read that plan?
The entire science of Kabbalah. It talks about how the world is built and how, with your actions, you can change it. This is what we deal with constantly.
Alina from Kiev is asking, what is the spiritual mind? How is it different from spiritual
matter? Desire to receive. Spiritual mind is a movement of this matter from one state to another. The mind is not felt if it does not move. Only in movement it expresses itself.
Natalie is asking, determine the level in spirituality is predetermined.
It's a difficult question, which I cannot answer for you to understand me correctly. I'll say this. If you would do everything correctly, with the most optimal opportunity that is given to you to advance, then you will do what you need to do. You will attain what you need to attain. How was the question again?
Is it predetermined the level, the spiritual level for the person in his life?
It's predetermined, but you don't know. You don't know that.
And our animal level
Which
is
animal?
predetermined?
How long will a person live in this life?
For example,
A cuckoo bird will tell you.
you know, like in this joke, how cuckoo tell me how many years to have left. And this plan from upward, downward, or for downward, upward, is it human?
It's a ladder.
In a person?
From bottom up to upwards, downwards.
But we're talking about that there are no ladders, no worlds. It's all inside of a
This is
person.
a hierarchy, right?
And what's the difference between from above upward and from upward downward?
Downwards, there are certain orders that come down, but from downwards up is our reactions.
So I have to go through thousands of states, and they're predetermined, and I just need to enter them and sense them, right?
You can speed it up, and then you will turn your existence into a more good, kind one.
But they will have to go through me, all these states. They don't change.
You'll be able to feel them go through really quickly.
So the quality of sensation and the speed changes.
The more you can feel them faster. The more you're ready for them, you can speed them up. It's just called the hastening of time.
Can you say that this descent and ascent happens in accordance to the same ladder? So we go upward in the same ladder.
When the same degrees, according to which the soul shattered.
So we sort of return the same state. The question: what is this ladder? What are those steps of the ladder made of? Can we jump,
you can't jump
over
across
the steps?
You can't skip. Desires constantly increase from a degree to degree. They form these degrees, and if we connect ourselves into these desires and realize them in a more intense way, then we ascend from a degree to degree. Each degree consists of more, maybe it doesn't even represent the letters so much, but more of a spiral. What else? Yeah, Rishimoto is there.
Right?
There's so much information there, the spiritual information, which is much more, which is more precise and deep, mutually connecting. It's a spiritual gene.
What is spiritual information? What's in it?
Are degrees of my advancement up until the degree of the Creator.
Yeah, but give me a little more volume. What is it when I connect with people, other people?
Mutually connect with others in more and more serious connections, then between us are revealed certain interdependencies that explain to me what is this upper benevolent and good force, this mind, this feeling. All of this is felt within me as one whole. That is called spiritual degree.
Can we say that our entire life is nothing but
These
a calculation?
calculations are in these degrees. There are where these calculations happen.
So the spiritual calculations are billions and millions of
A person
calculations,
shouldn't
right?
do that. He can't make those calculations. He goes through these calculations. They're all around him. Everything is integrated, added, and identified. All he needs to do is aspire forward, and he sees in which way all of this turns into one chained, linked system.
And this is all conscious. I make a lot of calculations unconsciously in our
Spiritual,
world.
it's unconscious, but you begin to see what you do. Gradually you learn that.
So these calculations
Through
toward the
other
Creator or
people
toward
to
other
the
people?
Creator. A Creator is a certain uniting, including within itself all of the connections between creatures.
So there's no direct
doesn't exist.
contact ever with the
Creator
Creator,
doesn't
right?
exist.
Well, what do you mean, doesn't exist? Such a shocking
We're talking about
statements.
We're
What
talking
does it
about the
mean?
fact
We
that
connect
we
him?
make the Creator. We build him.
It doesn't matter when he somehow is revealed, right?
It comes through our mutual connections. And that's how I feel him. We're talking about in relation to a person. When a person perceives this general, how should I say this general wholeness, the summation of everything, so the result of this connection between everyone that he evokes, then he comes to the Creator. And on each degree, this includes this whole element, integral element, which is why on each degree, the Creator is seen as different.
From Bishkek, the desire to reveal the Creator, is this an
The
ego?
desire
egoism?
to reveal the Creator, well, depends on your intention. If it's like either you want him to serve you or to become similar to him, because we want to attain similar qualities to him and become like him.
It's also the calculation. So further we go, the less egoistic the calculation has to be, right?
The more we advance, I'm required to make more efforts in certain calculations and the specifics of these calculations. In the approach, I learn through that to be similar to the Creator.
So it turns out the Kabbalist is always in the
What else should he do?
calculations.
What else should a person do in this life? if not to become similar to the Creator? Is there something more respectable than that?
Well, I don't know. There's some kind of leisure. I don't know.
This is a great vacation. If you're fulfilled, then you don't need anything else.
So you want vacation.
Why do
you won't need a vacation. This is like the vacation of
while we're in this animal body, up until the general correction, you can say that there's exhaustion and overworked. Then you switch to something else.
So by dealing with something else, you understand why you strive, why you go in the opposite direction, but then
don't value everything.
Can you give us an advice? Can you give us advice to those that don't get to that?
Only through greater connection with the creatures and the Creator.
Well, greater connection with the Creator, but we don't sense the Creator.
This means that's why the Creator was switched in the system to the creatures. Connection, the most optimal connection with the creatures. And do everything that's in your power in relation to them, brings you to a state when you begin to feel the Creator. You build His form through this connection with others. You build Him.
So you advise now, after this webinar ends, you advise to start connecting to other people, whether they understand or not, right? So there's a question. There's now in our days there's observation of everything. I realize that everything in work and my life comes from Him. Do I do it correctly?
Alexander из Москвы спрашивает, как ученик может приблизиться к учителю, ведь у вас...
Alexander from Moscow is asking, how can a student can come close to his teacher, because you have so many students around.
To get close means to do what the teacher is asking, is advising. You can be in Moscow or somewhere else, you can be next to me, doesn't matter. It depends on your readiness to do what the teacher is advising. This is work in the group and all these other things we're talking about.
Question from Rovno. As we study in Kabbalah and we read through the mind, and at the same time we reveal in our senses, what is higher, the memory, the intuition, or something else?
It's the feelings, not memory or intuition. Intuition is also as a result of memory. We're talking about feelings. What happens in a desire?
Олег из Питера, что такое конец всех поколений? Это конец физической жизни?
Question from Peter. What does it mean, the end of all generations? It's the end of physical existence or the end of the states?
All generations means end of...
So we say that we are at the times of the last generation. What does it mean?
This means that we approach the ladder, and the ascent on this ladder we need to do as the last generation. The ladder is still before us.
Please, during the lesson, tell us, during the lesson, what type of calculations the students has to make?
I would advise for a student to be with his teacher and friends throughout the lesson as one whole. If he understands or not, it's irrelevant.
Another question from Bishkek. Can you see a world from one end to another?
Of course, 10 is in a complete system of the universe. There's no greater than 10 elements in any system, and everything, and they do exist in your system, all of these elements. In your small 10, you can reveal the entire world, all of the worlds, including the Creator. Nothing exists outside of the 10.
So becomes your the state
Yes,
of
which
embryo,
is
as
why
we say.
this is called the study of the 10 Sefirot.
It's interesting about the 10. At one hand, there's entire humanity is the 10. On the other hand, there's like 2 people is already 10. I sit next to Bor, I like him, and it's already 10. There are more people in
You
class.
haven't reached them yet. You'll get to them later.
So it is possible, right? I pick whoever it's more
In order to
convenient
exit
with.
yourself, it's
and
enough to have another person besides yourself.
So we study together, we work. It could be 2
You can do
or
it like
more
that,
people, right?
but it's better if it's closer to 10 people.
What if it's expanding?
It's better
more
not to have more than 10. Yeah, we're talking
But not about
bodies.
physical
Person
bodies,
cannot
right?
interpret more than 10.
So that's how the system is built. I need 10, and
The
I don't need
entire
anything
world
else.
will gather inside of them. You'll perceive everything through your 10.
That's a great relief. Was it written you have to love the entire world or love thy
It's one and
neighbor?
the same.
Вот Павел из Ужгорода.
Well,
You'll
one thing
see
is to
such
love
problems
one
that arise
person,
between
the
them
other
that you'll
things.
realize that it's enough to love one person.
The question, the main commandment is to love thy neighbor as yourself. Is it amongst those who study together or those who study and
All between those that
other
study.
people?
In no way should you love others, any other one.
Oh, yeah. Is it somehow like enclosed?
Maybe a closed organization. Yeah, you can consider that it's so. This is what Kabbalists recommend for you. Towards others, you should relate kind of indifferently.
Okay, let's continue that. Nevertheless, if you go up to those relationships, the entire world is going to be revealed to you, and you just
The whole
kind of
world
like
will be felt within the stand. All these problems, the egoism, you'll feel inside of the stand. You won't see your friends any longer as these good, nice people. Where will these challenges come between you?
And gradually, in the 10, you come to the love of
When you
the
finish
entire
between
world, right?
yourselves all of these problems, then you will see that the entire world is within a 10.
Is it possible to say that there are 2 stages? One is the first stage is the hate toward the other, and the second stage is
Not to hate others, and the second degree is to love.
so the entire don't do to others, don't do what you don't want to be done to yourself, and the second stage is to love thy neighbor as yourself with a friend, right?
With the friends and with the world. The entire world will appear between you and your friend. Why does it seem to you that it's so easy? Try it.
Nevertheless, we just explained what it means just between the friends and then how the world is revealed. Another question. Teacher, please tell us, do you have any feelings toward us? What about hatred? We also say that there's some periods of hatred
What, hatred?
on the way to
Of course
love.
they exist. How can there be love without hatred? There has to be one above another.
So there's no love without hatred.
One feeling by itself is not a realized feeling.
Please, I ask, please, can you give a definition of hatred? We understand the earthly hatred, but the spiritual
When I
hatred.
try to
What is it?
connect with another and I begin to perceive his negative qualities as my own and hate them within myself. Yes.
In me. How can I love or hate somebody if I don't know? When I interact with something, it's clear. How is it can just like
Just
out
like
of nowhere I
that,
can
that's how
hate?
the world acts upon us. What can you do?
Okay, well, probably the last question. Listening to you, I get an image. I'm on the second degree,
What a
and I
nice
study
girl.
math, and I'm
And
trying to
so
understand
what?
something. Is this correct?
That's how you should feel, and just feel like you're a good student. What do we wish
Any
for?
wishes
We're
for
in
the
a
week?
special period. We're learning how to enter the egoism and how to exit the egoism. This is an entrance into Egypt and exit out of Egypt. All these definitions, these names, Egypt, Pharaoh, the main thing is what happens with us. Let's enter into this seriously. I'm writing about a lot of these things in my Twitter feed. I ask you to review it. I spend a lot of hours on this specifically for you to learn from that, and you will see how it works. Reread it constantly. The main thing is for it to be inside of you, and we will see success. Good luck to all of us, health and happiness, and the main thing is spiritual attainments. I love you. Goodbye.